Hello, beautiful viewers. My name is Precious, and I just want to welcome you all to Reality Talk with Precious. And in this first episode, we're going to be talking about mental health and stigma. And without just wasting much of your time, I would like to introduce to you the CEO from Training and Development Company by the name of Chris from the UK in Manchester. And he actually works with one of the biggest companies in Zambia, like ABSA, and also 12 countries in Africa, 13 in total, including Zambia. So welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you, I appreciate it. It's good to be here.
Of course, it's good to have you here on board. Yeah, okay, so on this topic that we're going to talk about, I know it's very sensitive because there are people out there who barely talk about mental health in Zambia. And I feel like this show is going to be very significant to people out there, individuals who lack mental health education. So I would like you to tell me and my beautiful viewers and everyone out there who's going to be watching this program what you think mental health is in your own understanding.
Okay, great question. I think everybody has a different perception on what mental health is. And if we pick on the African perception of mental health, I think there's definitely, you used the word stigma. I think there's absolutely a huge stigma attached to mental health.
Yes.
There's many things that are typically associated with that stigma, for example, witchcraft, things like that. But I would say, if we look at mental health as a whole, it can be anything from anxiety, it can be depression, it can be something so simple which we don't even recognise ourselves that we have, but I feel like it can also be something quite large and also quite complex.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very good. And I think on my side, I feel like mental health, of course, has got so much to do with anxiety, and there's so many mental health disorders out there that people actually don't know about. So during your stay or your travels with work here in Zambia, Mozambique, and other countries, like you said, 13 in total, how do you think mental health is different to other countries? And of course, the UK, can you just try to differentiate? Like, do you think Africa has got so many mental health professionals or therapists that can attend to people that are suffering with so many mental issues like schizophrenia, to mention but a few?
Okay. Huge difference, of course, when you compare mental health in Zambia, in Africa, compared to the UK, compared to Europe, compared to the US. If we look at, and we were talking about this just before the show, we were talking about mental health literacy.
Yes.
And if you look at the UK, mental health literacy is actually taught to young people, young people. So I think the younger we are to start to learn about these things, it almost puts that stigma to one side.
Yes.
But also, you also need to be careful with that, all right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people in the UK now that are using mental health as an excuse not to do things, right? So I feel like there's no right or wrong with this. But if it's a comparison, there's not a stigma necessarily attached in the UK. If we pick on the UK, there is. You mentioned professionals. Far more mental health professionals.
Yes. There's
far more people going into that field of profession now, and there's just a lot more support. So there's a lot more support available. You can join online groups where everybody's anonymous, but you come together and talk about the challenges that you have. There's online mental health professionals where you pay a subscription onto an app, for example, and you can have one-on-one therapy sessions. There's just far much more support available. But if we do look at mental health literacy, yes, on the one side we can now educate people on what mental health is, to try and not only take away the stigma but also help family members to understand how they deal with other family members' issues. But yes, we can address that. yes, we can try and fix that.
Mm-hmm.
But if we haven't got the mental health healthcare professionals to be able to address that problem, it's great understanding the solution.
Yeah.
But we don't. But if we don't, it's great understanding the problem.
Yes.
But if we don't have the solution to the problem,
There's
then
nothing that's gonna change about.
we now create another problem.
Yeah, that's true. So basically, in Zambia, I would say there are people, not everyone, but I would say maybe 40% of them believe in certain means, such that when they see someone having a mental health disorder or any issue related with their mental health, they call it madness.
Okay.
People will go straight and judge to say this is madness. And I feel like people who are struggling with mental health really need someone to talk to instead of being judged. And this is where the stigma thing comes in.
Okay.
I have seen people whereby they're very stressed, depressed, and the anxiety is just on a different level, but they just need someone to talk to with certain matters that are bothering them. And we have reached a point whereby even just a fellow relative, a Zambian cannot trust a fellow relative to explain their mental health issues, and not even a friend, because they know that the moment I talk to a friend to say I'm going through this and I feel so depressed, the friend is going to make fun of that topic or challenge the other person is experiencing, go out there and be like, oh, she's going through this, or she's depressed because of this and all that. And at the end of the day, people are being found in scenarios where they just choose to isolate themselves, which makes even their mental health condition more dangerous and hazard to their life. Okay. So I'm very much convinced to say, when you say we don't have too much professionals in Zambia, it's true. I feel like it needs to be done whereby we need even just consultants where people can just have a down number, a down line, where they can talk to people whom they don't know, maybe just strangers online, explain their issues. And if that would make them feel much better, it would be better than we are right now.
I agree. I think being able to talk to a complete stranger that you know is not going to judge you.
Yeah, it's not going to judge you.
They're not going to be in your circle of friends now, gossiping, and also family members as well.
Yeah.
But I also feel like the pastors in church don't really help too much either.
Yes.
You are supposed to be able to go to your pastor and be able to talk about anything, right?
Of course. And
but I feel like from a mental health perspective and being able to get support with that. I'm not saying this is every situation, for example, but I've heard a lot of stories whereby people have approached their pastor at church and it's not gone well.
That's true.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would say that in Zambia, when it comes to mental health and church, they don't even correlate that much. Like I said, people underestimating the term mental health and the issues that come in with it. People are always ignorant about it. And Zambia being a Christian nation, it's disappointing that we have leaders out there who don't even preach about mental health. These are things that are supposed to be talked about in church. Because if you don't talk about mental health in church, how are you helping someone who's going through certain types of issues that cannot be disclosed even in public? If a person cannot run to their pastor or cannot run to a prophet to say, man of God, this is what I'm going through, I feel like church is not even helping at all. Not in all areas, but I feel like somewhere 75% pastors are not helping people when it comes to mental health. You know, and I feel like this should be the first point. Zambia being a Christian nation, it should be the first point where people are free to disclose their matters to pastors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. You mentioned around leaders, and of course, being in the position that I'm in, I deal with the most senior leaders you can imagine on a day-to-day basis. So of course, I get to observe them. I get to have different conversations that other people would typically have.
Yeah.
And people wouldn't believe how many of these senior leaders are dealing with different mental health situations.
Yeah.
Because, okay, I'll give you an example. As I was climbing the corporate ladder to try and get to the top, there was one thing I realised, and that is the further you get up the ladder, the less people now ask you if you're okay.
Yeah.
The less people ask you if you're okay, because people are looking up to you for leadership. People are looking up to you for you to ask them if you're okay, to ask them if they're okay. So one of the countries we operate in, other than Zambia, is Zimbabwe.
Okay.
And I created, so I'm the chairman of a group, and within that group we have the most senior CEOs, CFOs, CIOs within the whole of Zimbabwe.
Okay.
I think we've got people from the largest 200 brands there,
Okay.
and we come together once every quarter. We come together, so once every 3 months we come together, and we don't really talk business. We talk about the challenges we face as
an individual.
Yes, as individuals, as leaders, as guiders, as people who are needing to take 800 people on a journey, right? And making sure that everybody's okay. So by now, being able to step away from your everyday situation and just be able to talk about that freely in an environment like this helps hugely.
That's true. So I think I'm going to give this example. As a student, personally, my experience as a health practitioner, I feel like mental health shouldn't only be taught because you're a health practitioner, whether you are studying nursing, medicine, or whatever it is that you're doing in health. I feel like mental health shouldn't just be stuck in that box. I feel like universities should actually have platforms where students can learn, be educated on mental health. It doesn't matter whether you're into nursing or maybe you're just doing banking and finance, whatsoever it is. It shouldn't only be in universities. I mean, tertiary level, it's okay because we've got people who can easily understand certain matters. But let's talk of the young ones who are in basic schools and high schools. I feel like it's high time we start introducing clubs which only talk and facilitate on mental health, so that as we get to grow, as we get into our 20s, we can understand whatever is going on inside us before we can even talk to someone out there. Because I feel like having illiterate, education on mental health actually affects us as we grow, because I would not be able to understand the person that I am and what I'm going through. Why? Because I lack knowledge on mental health. And I think I've had so much interest in mental health. This is why I brought it on the show, because I did some voluntary work. That was 2019, and I was very young. And I had so much knowledge acquired. I was like, so this is how life is, and this is how I'm supposed to carry myself. And I'm like, so when I'm going through this, I need to talk to someone. In order for me to feel better, I need to talk to someone that I trust. But there are people out there who are locking themselves in their rooms, and which is actually ending up into committing suicide to some. So I feel like mental health really needs to be discussed on a very high note to everyone out there in the community, in schools, in other institutions.
I agree. And if you talk about in school, for example, right? There's so many students. Every year, there's new students going to university, right? So look at how many new students go to UNZA every year. And what they are learning and what they're being taught is, of course, all theory for whatever profession that they want to go in. But if you want to really be successful in the profession that you're going into, then I talk to students all the time. I did a guest speak in UNZA last month to 500 students. And they all talk about they want to climb the corporate ladder, they want to be a business owner, they want to do this. But to be able to get to that level, you also need to understand your own emotional intelligence.
Yes.
But to be able to understand and work and practice on your emotional intelligence, you need to work on things like your self-awareness.
Yes.
You need to look this way as well as look this way.
Yes.
But if I don't understand my own mental health, that now takes away the understanding of my own self-awareness and therefore my emotional intelligence.
Yeah, that's so much true. And the fact that let me just not say Zambia, but Africa at large, most of them countries will lack mental health education. And I hope that our leaders in government, our lecturers, and other leaders in different opposition parties would just take time to bring in mental health clubs, groups, teams that will be discussing on such matters that are affecting people like anxiety And then also I was actually thinking about what do you think are some of the causes you've observed would be predisposing factors to mental health, people undergoing whatever they're going through.
From what I've seen, it's the pressure from home.
Yeah.
It's cultural pressure.
Yeah.
For example, young people being put under pressure by their parents to do well in school.
Yeah.
It's some families are very unfortunate and maybe the parents are ill, or there's only one parent left and now they fall ill.
Yeah.
Therefore, responsibilities of bringing food into the house fall onto the shoulders of someone that's very, very young, possibly. So when we talk about depression, we talk about anxiety, you talked about suicide. From the stories that I've heard, usually it's those cultural pressures.
Yeah, I think in Zambia we have so many myths that people stand on and believe in, and they've taken it as a norm out there in society, and they're living based on that, you know. And people are like, just like you're saying, pressure from family. Let's give an example. I have seen students who come to school studying a certain program, let's say nursing, for instance, not because they want to study nursing, but just because they were forced to say you're going to get a job real quick and make the money, which is not supposed to be the thing. I think individuals, as they grow, they need to make their own decisions to do what they want and what they're passionate about. If I feel like our parents should learn to, support us in our skills and things that we really want.
Okay, let me just flip that.
Yeah.
Right. Let me just flip that. So,
Okay.
Mental health is, in a lot of cases, it's if not most cases, it's a psychology, right? It's a psychology.
Yeah.
So if we talk about psychologically understanding something, I ask students all that. You're giving a great example. People go to school to do nursing, they go to school to be whatever it is they're going to school for.
Yeah.
And you ask them, why are you doing this? Is it something you enjoy? No.
No.
So why are you doing it? Because my parents wanted me to do it.
Yeah.
Right? And the question I always ask, why?
Yeah, why?
They can't answer you. Because they've never, ever, first of all, they've never questioned something that's been asked of them. And they don't understand their own parents.
Yeah.
Why don't you try and understand why your parents make the decisions that they do? Or they get you to do the things
that you don't
they
want
make
to
you
do.
to do.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's going to cause a lot of challenges, because now you're at university for 4 years
doing something that
doing
you don't
something
enjoy,
you don't even
that
enjoy.
you don't like. Yeah, exactly. So I feel like in this case, parents need to learn to support their children as they grow to do what they really want, what makes them happy, because at the end of the day, it's the child versus the world that they're facing and the things that they want. So I feel like if parents, especially African parents, if they can just change this mentality of making decisions for their children, I think someone at the age of 18, they know what they want, they know what they really like, and you know, if I choose to say I don't want to do nursing, I want to be an entrepreneur, or I want to be a footballer, parents should come in and support me with my journey of football, and not say, no, football is not going to take you anywhere. Can you stick to nursing, or can you do teaching? In the end, we're going to have students doing what they do not like to do. And as they go in universities, it actually becomes more stressful because you don't like what you're doing, and it affects your education.
I speak to a lot of Zambian parents, for example, right?
Yeah.
And you speak to them and they say, we want our child to be the most successful person.
Yeah.
We want them to travel the world, work in different countries, do this. But you look at the way they're now bringing up their child, they're only preparing their child for Zambia.
For Zambia.
If you don't do something different, the next generation is just going to be exactly the same.
Of course,
And change doesn't happen overnight. So
Sure.
the more people now, 18, 19, 20 years old, these people are the next generation of parents, right? So they need to be understanding now to when they get to the point of having children in the next 5 to however many years, that they're being able to make that generational change.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, that's good. Oh my God, you know a lot about Africa. We are going to adopt you in Zambia.
I've already been
Oh,
adopted.
yes,
I've already been
please
adopted.
become Zambian. We need you here. So, another thing that was actually clicking on my mind before I came on this show was, how do you think, or should I say, people who are struggling with mental health right now, do you think it also has got something to do with child abuse?
Yes, I believe so. I believe so. But I feel like the phrase child abuse can be quite subjective. There's different perception on what child abuse is.
Yeah.
And okay, I'm going to give you an example, and maybe you've never looked at it this way, right?
Okay.
If you have a child just to have a helper at home, is that not child abuse?
It is.
But if you speak to a lot of people, especially in Zambian culture or African culture,
They think it's not.
they never look at it that way.
Yeah.
So child abuse can be, it can be many different things.
Yes.
It could be, for example, making your child stand up for 6 hours whilst you sit down resting because you're the elder.
Yeah, because you're the elders and the little ones should do the cleaning, and not little cleaning, but sometimes it's just too much. Trust me.
But of course the issue is that the parent was made to do those things when they were a child. So now they're looking at that and saying, well, if I had to do that, they now need to do that.
Of course.
But these are the same people that also expect change. But if change doesn't come without you making a change. So, child abuse can be a lot of different things. It could be there is an alcoholic parent. It could be a parent that is sexually abusive, right? But unfortunately, I feel like from a policing perspective, maybe things are not taken serious enough. You've also got other scenarios. So you've got other scenarios whereby, imagine this: you have a woman in the household. They've got 2-3 children. The dad is the only person that's making any money. The dad's abusive not only to the wife, but he's also abusive to the kids. No one's going to try and get that guy in trouble, because if he now gets in trouble for child abuse, then, well, who's bringing food into the house?
Yeah.
So what you'll find is a lot of scenarios like that are just completely forgotten about. So now it puts even more pressure on the kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a big problem.
Yeah, I really feel like there's too much of ignorance in Zambia and Africa as a whole, and this really needs to be dealt with. The earlier, the better. I really believe it's never too late. It's never too early.
In the UK, if a child went into school in the UK and there was a small bruise on the arm, right, and it looks like it's been caused by physical harm, the school would intervene. The police would be called straight away.
Okay.
And they would also call social services, and there would be a full investigation.
Awesome.
But of course, things like that
happens in Africa.
Things like that in Africa doesn't exist. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of child abuse, I've had, growing up in a hospital environment. Like, my father used to work at a hospital way back before he retired. So I grew up in a hospital camp. And during that time, I saw people, I think I was like 16 by then. I saw women getting pregnant, and then after giving birth, they abandon the child, like they run away. Like, a mother would go out there for 3 months, 1 month, leaving a child who's only like 8 months. Until I've seen, like, I remember there was this young lady who used to leave her child, and the child grew up to 4 years. The mom keeps on going for 2 months, 3 months, then comes back. And I feel like that would actually affect a child's mental state. And when they grow up, they would stand up there and just ask, where was my mother by then? And I really feel like it would be one of the reasons why people are experiencing so much mental health. Maybe because of the way they were brought up. Maybe because it was a broken home. I don't know where they would come from. Maybe they were being mistreated. But it all starts from a child. Even a child who's at 8 months, is being pressured mentally, the fact that they do not see their mother for a month. I think children just don't get to voice out and say, where's my mother? Sometimes they watch and be like, oh, maybe this is how the world is supposed to be. This is how life is supposed to be. But mothers also need to learn to be there for their children and understand how just mental health is important to their children. This is happening like in so many communities in Zambia. People go out there, abandon their children, and they go for alcohol.
You're asking the question of what impact does that have on the child, but my question is, what mental health is the mother suffering with to be able to make that decision?
Well, the main point here is, I feel like, do you think children are also affected at a younger age before they even go up to that elderly age?
Yes, I believe children are affected at a very, very young age.
Yeah.
You can be 5 years old and have depression, right?
Yeah.
It's just that the 5-year-old doesn't know how to express
their emotions and how they're feeling.
How they're feeling. But what my point I'm trying to get across is that it's not just an understanding of what is the child going through and what is that going to do to the child.
Okay.
But let's look at the root cause. The root cause was the mother
going out and loving the child.
What is the mother going through mentally? What is she going through to make? Again, we talk about
decision.
psychology, right?
Yeah.
We all make decisions every day. So from a mental perspective, what has driven her? What mental health is she dealing with to now making such a drastic
alternatively, you're trying to explain to say, I think this issue is not only supposed to be, people need not to be too judgmental to say, why is the mother doing that?
Yeah.
It's high time people around, friends and families should get in and just have a good conversation with the mother and know why they're leaving their child like that.
Why be
What's the cause?
Why be so quick to judge and why be so quick to presume?
Yes.
And why be so quick to accuse?
Okay, yeah.
So if my child, I don't have any children by the way, but I'm just using an example.
Okay.
If my child was to do something naughty, my first reaction is not to discipline the child.
Oh yeah.
Yes, the child needs disciplining.
Of course.
We're not questioning that.
Yes.
But my first question is, why did he or she do that?
Yeah.
What drove them to do what they've done? Did they understand enough to be able to obviously they don't understand enough because they've made that mistake. So the first question is, what can I now do to help them and make sure that it doesn't happen again?
Yeah.
Then the disciplining can come.
Yes.
But I feel like from what I've seen in most African countries, the first thing is, let's discipline the child. Let's not even try and understand why the child's even done this.
Yes, and I really feel like children are still young to understand certain things. They're still growing and they need to be taught on how to do the right thing and not to do the wrong thing. And it's true, as an African, as a Zambian, honestly, I've seen this, like, our parents, our aunties, when you do something wrong, the first thing they'll do, they won't say, why did you spill the beans? Or why did you just drink from my water? The first thing they'll do, why did you do that? And they'll start shouting at you. And they'll be like, bring me a stick, let me just whip this child and dismiss her, next time they won't do this. So I feel like that doesn't help. I remember my lecturer, it was like 2 weeks ago, she was teaching us in the same course, mental health, and she was like, it really affects a child's mental health in the fact that if a child makes a mistake, the first thing we run to is disciplining the child, and not just telling the child to say, next time do not do this is wrong. And that needs to be dealt with as well in Africa, not only Zambia.
But it comes back to emotional intelligence. If my emotional intelligence is not mature, I'm not mature enough now to be able to pause, think. Yeah. Why did they do that? Yeah. Yeah. If I'm not mature, if I'm not emotionally mature, I'm not able to. I'm not, because your natural subconscious mind wants you to shout, wants you to discipline. But if you've not worked on your emotional intelligence, you're not able to take a step back, breathe, and then react. Yeah,
I think this is where we need mental health volunteers, people willing to educate others out there. I don't know if the government can come in, but I feel like this is where we need people to go out now in communities and educate people about mental health.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, all right. So thank you so much for having you here.
My pleasure. It's great being here. I appreciate it.
Of course,
hopefully this helps some people, I'm sure. But definitely something needs to be worked on, and you came up with a great idea, creating some form of groups, and just trying to look for support. Talk to a stranger.
Yes, talk to a stranger.
Just go out and talk to a stranger.
Like, think a stranger is the best person when it comes to mental health. And if you're out there watching this program and you feel like you're going through such issues to do with your mental health, just know that you're not alone. We are here for you. We are there for you, actually. And this show is here for you, specifically those who are dealing with mental health issues. And if you feel like you need someone to talk to, please do not hesitate to talk to your close friends, family members that you trust, or a stranger that you can trust. So thank you so much, Chris, for having me here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I hope to have you on my show again. I don't know when, next year, who knows, but it was nice having this chat with you.
Thank you.
So that was a very beautiful conversation that we had with Chris from the UK, and one of the reasons I invited him over was to just see how other people out there in the UK have had so much time to learn on mental health, and how much us as Zambians get to ignore the power of just having a good mental state. So if you're going through anything, whatever you're going through, the anxiety and everything, please do find someone to talk to. And if you just really need someone who can be there to educate you on mental health, do not hesitate to watch this show on Topsa channel 456. And then one thing that I'd like to say is that you guys should subscribe to my YouTube channel, of which I'm gonna share. I think I'm gonna just try to attach it to the video on my Facebook page, which is Precious Kenneth, on TikTok, Miss Kenneth Official, on Instagram, Precious Kenneth Official, and of course I'm there on X, Twitter, Precious Kenneth. Thank you so much for watching this program, and I'm looking forward to share more episodes. This is only season 1, episode 1, and we're going to be talking about mental health, sexual reproductive health, and fashion. Thank you so much, and have a blessed day.